Roller coasters, their prime directive is to be entertaining. We strap into these rides so that we can be transported away from our daily problems and experience 2 minutes of fun. Well, unfortunately, not every roller coaster is exciting, and some have moments of the ride where it just falls flat. In this video, I'm going to talk about the most boring elements on a roller coaster. Before I get on with this video, please do me a favor by clicking on that like button, and if you are new to my channel, love roller coasters like I do, be sure to follow. The lift. This one is sort of a cheat because the lift isn't really part of the whole prime ride time as it were, but regardless, the lift is an essential part of almost every roller coaster, providing you the correct amount of energy to make it through the rest of the ride. Not every lift is boring, some roller coasters do it right. I can't think of a single boring vertical lift. Those are some of the most intimidating moments on any roller coaster. Even your typical lift can be thrilling if it provides that anticipation, the build-up before the first giant drop. However, there are plenty of roller coasters that have slow-moving, boring lifts. The Beast at Kings Island is a good example of this, or Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood, though that last one provides some nice views up at the top. Straight track. It's the most basic form of track a roller coaster manufacturer can add to the attraction. Just travel straight, and that's it. Doesn't really matter if you are going super fast or slow, if it's a long period of straight track, it's basically pretty boring. The most notorious coasters that feature pointless moments of straight track would have to be Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake, and its mirrored clone Superman Ride of Steel over at Six Flags America. There is a part of the ride that is about 4 seconds of straight track. Vertical loop. If a piece of straight track is the most basic element found on a roller coaster, then I would argue that a vertical loop is the most basic inversion found on a roller coaster. It may not be the first original inversion of modern looping roller coasters, no, that would be a corkscrew, but I think it's the most boring. Not to say that this element lacks any forces, because entering and exiting a vertical loop, especially on older looping roller coasters, is where you will experience some of the strongest G-forces. I think the main reason why I yawn every time I see a vertical loop is because it's so redundant. If an amusement park has a roller coaster that goes upside down, chances are one of them will contain a vertical loop. Over the past few years, roller coaster manufacturers have started to catch on how overused a vertical loop is, which is why they aren't being utilized as often, which I think is a good thing. Now, there are some exciting vertical loops like the ones found on Copperhead Strike in Time Traveler. Taking the element at slower speeds creates more hang time, which I think is more exciting than your average positive G-forces. Turnaround. One of the most necessary evils found on a roller coaster. It's a requirement for every out and back roller coaster. A hypercoaster needs this element in order to send the train back in the same direction in which it came from. Most of the time, this element is made up of an inclined, overbanked 180-degree turn, but it also comes in some variation. The best of the turnarounds is found on Fury 325. The treble clef element provides some exciting laterals and airtime as you exit out of the maneuver and dive down into a tunnel. The worst is basically found on any B&M hyper model. You have to perform some kind of turnaround to send the train back, so it's a moment of the train that eats up time, just setting you up for the next element of the ride. Millennium Force at Cedar Point is also another great example. This roller coaster features many turnaround elements. Some of them are a little bit more exciting than others, just maybe because of the higher speeds, but it still kind of get redundant after the third or fourth time. Helix. I let out a giant yawn every time I see a Helix on a roller coaster. Besides the straight track, this is the next most time-consuming, boring element on a roller coaster. Sure, it can provide some strong sustained forces, which I guess some enjoy that sensation of graying out, but not me. Those are just on the strongest of Helixes. Most roller coasters use a Helix as a way of padding their ride time. It doesn't really add much in the form of fun, just extending out the ride time. Once again, both Ride of Steel and Superman Ride of Steel find themselves on the wall of shame, this time with their 2 giant helixes. These 2 elements are the most time-consuming part of the ride, and especially the second helix, which is an upward helix, gets slower and more boring as you traverse this element. Personally, for most roller coasters, I would rather eliminate the Helix and shorten the ride time. The Beast at Kings Island is a good example of how fun a Helix can be. That moment of the ride provides some crazy forces and gives you that sensation of being out of control. Cobra Roll. I'm saving my least favorite inversion for last. The Cobra Roll, which function is very similar to a typical turnaround element, is only there to do that. Send you back in the same direction in which you came. The boomerang model is the most notorious roller coaster to use this element. It's a necessary one as it allows the roller coaster to be built in a very tight, compact piece of land. The Cobra Roll, or boomerang roll depending on how you want to call it, got its name from the shape it creates. If you look at this element from the side, it makes the outline of a cobra in an attack position. This element is not only boring, but usually quite uncomfortable. If it's not boring you to death, then it's trying to give you a headache. This element loves to bounce your head off the restraints as you enter and exit this maneuver. Well, that's going to do it for my list of boring elements on a roller coaster. Which element did I get right or wrong? Also, did I forget to mention your boring element? Tell me all about it in the comments. Until next time, this is X Scream Thrills.